Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning blog. My name is Melisa Galasso, and today we're talking about a change that's been proposed by the Professional Ethics Executive Committee with respect to the definition of a public interest entity. And this is really not something that they wanted to do. This is something they have to do because of recent changes. So this is updating a definition which is in 0400 of the Code of Professional Conduct. And currently, the definition of a public interest entity has several parts, and two of them are tied to FDIC and NAIC requirements. However, they specifically have explicit dollar thresholds. And now that the regulators are actually updating their thresholds, it's creating a difference between what the actual threshold is in the standard setter, FDIC, NAIC, versus what PEEC has in their in the actual definition. And obviously, this was not intentional, right? When they wrote the definition way back when, those were the thresholds that were in place, but the FDIC actually just updated them. So on December 4th, the FDIC issued a final rule that was effective January 1st of this year that raises the audit requirement from 500 million to $1 billion and raises the threshold from 1 billion to 5 billion for the Part 363 requirement. This actually impacts the way that we make reference to the FDIC requirements in that definition of a public interest entity. Now, the NAIC also reviews its thresholds annually, but has not made a change. But while we're in here, probably makes sense to remove specific thresholds and defer just to the actual standards. So the update here is very straightforward to avoid future misalignment if they do decide to, or if again, they make an update going forward. They're just going to remove the specific dollar thresholds in category B and C and just tie it to the FDIC and NAIC requirements so that any changes that they make will just apply going forward. So again, they're also planning to remove the audit requirement in category B because it's triggered at a lower threshold than the Part 363. And so any financial institution that meets the Part 363 automatically meets the audit requirement here. So this still looks at risk based on asset size and also NAIC considers by premium level. So we're still going to get that risk-based approach to these types of financial institutions that are higher risk without being tied in. Now, because this effective date was January 1st, and we had to obviously put this out for public comment, they are doing a temporary enforcement because the FDIC has clarified that because of the new threshold was effective January 1st, they do not need to comply with those 363 if they're no longer in the threshold. So we're also including a temporary enforcement policy that says, hey, while we're working this out through the normal due process, putting it out for public comment, getting feedback, issuing and finaling, we would not find someone non-compliant if they were to use a new threshold, even though it's not compliant with the actual statement in the standards. Because this is already effective, we are doing it a pretty quick turnaround. They're recommending an effective date 6 months after it's published in the Journal of Accountancy, obviously with early implementation allowed. Comments are due next month, September 15th, and you can either use an online form that kind of just streamlines your feedback, or if you want to mail a formal letter, you can do that to ethics-exposuredraft@aicpa.org. So again, this is a pretty niche change, but it's very important because we don't want to be out of alignment with other standard setters. And this is something that both the FASB and GASB have been thinking about lately. And we've seen some of that where we make reference to someone else and then they change the rules. I'm thinking about like our tax example that we've had on the FASB side. So we don't want to get into a conflict when other entities are making changes. And this is something that PEEC has decided to take up. And I don't think that this is a surprise at all. But again, I hope this is interesting to you. And if you have any feedback, obviously the AICPA would love to hear it. So thank you guys so much for joining me today on the Genuine Learning blog. And I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.